Good morning. Welcome to Bad Road Industries. I'm Marty. Today is January 22nd, 2026. I am going to take you on what I consider one of the most creepiest Jeep trails in California. Shortly, we'll be approaching the ghost town of Ballarat, and from there, we are going to go to Barker Ranch via Gohler Wash, which carves right through a slot into Death Valley. In case you don't know, Barker Ranch was the home or the hideout of Charles Manson and his gang. And more about that story as we continue on this journey. We started the day in Lone Pine, heading west towards Panamints Valley, trading pavement for wide open desert and long sight lines that make you feel small in the best possible way. Our group consisted of Bob in his 2022 Ford Bronco, John in his 2018 Jeep JK Rubicon, Ted in his 2023 two-door Jeep Willys JL, and me in my 2022 Jeep Rubicon XR. Liam was supposed to be with us as well, but had to pull out of the excursion after blowing axle seals while descending into Panamints Valley. A reminder that even before the trail really begins, the desert always has a say. The weather couldn't have been better. Clear blue skies, sunshine all day, and temperatures climbing into the low 50s. Though it felt much warmer with absolutely no wind. One of those rare desert days where everything just works. Dropping into Panamints Valley really sets the tone for the day. It's wide, quiet, and exposed. A place where distance stretch and landmarks feel far away, even when you can see them clearly. This is the kind of terrain that reminds you how easily someone could vanish out here, and why the desert has always attracted people looking to disappear. From Panamints Valley, we made our way to Ballarat. Ballarat was founded in the 1890s as a supply town for nearby gold and silver mines. At its peak, it supported a few hundred residents, miners, families, shopkeepers, and served as the last reliable stop before heading deeper into the Panamints Mountains. Everything passed through Ballarat: food, water, tools, mail. If you're heading into the backcountry, this was your final connection to civilization. But like many desert boom towns, when the mines dried up, Ballarat faded. By the early 1900s, it became a ghost town, quiet, isolated, and mostly forgotten. And decades later, that same isolation would attract people who wanted to disappear completely. I've been fascinated by the Charles Manson story ever since I first read about it as a teenager. Even now, I still find it hard to believe in how a single person, one deeply disturbed individual, could become a leader, manipulate so many people, and convince them not only to believe in him, but to carry out his vision. That idea, how influence, isolation, and belief can combine into something so dangerous. That has always stayed with me. And that disturbing concept is what first drew me to Barker Ranch in the first place. This isn't just a place tied to a crime story. It's a place that forces you to confront uncomfortable questions about human nature. From Ballarat, the route turns west and begins climbing into Gohler Wash. Even today, this section demands patience. Loose rocks, narrow canyon walls, steep climbs, and washouts over exposed stone force you into low range, slow, deliberate crawling where tire placement matters and momentum doesn't. Nothing extreme, but technical enough to demand focus and remind you that this landscape always deserves respect. The kind of driving that pulls you completely into the moment. In the late 1960s, this route was even more remote. No GPS, no cell phones, no easy way in or out. That difficulty wasn't a drawback, it was the point. Goler Wash became a natural barrier between the outside world and Barker Ranch. Barker Ranch sits high in the Panamints Mountains, nearly 5,000 feet above sea level. Originally built as a mining camp and later used by ranchers, it had stone buildings, animal pens, and even a small swimming pool, rare luxuries in the desert. But its real value was invisibility. You don't stumble onto Barker Ranch. If you were here, it's because you were meant to be. By 1968, it became home to Charles Manson and members of what became known as the Manson family. Manson believed society was on the brink of collapse. A coming race war he called Helter Skelter. He convinced his followers the desert would protect them. The group stockpiled stolen vehicles near the ranch, hiding them amongst the rocks and washes. Mobility mattered. If authorities appeared, they believed they could scatter by foot, by vehicle, or deeper into the canyons. They used natural caves, shallow bunkers, and the train itself as concealment. Standing here, it's easy to see why they felt untouchable. The land itself feels like a fortress. One of the strangest details of life at Barker Ranch was how they moved people and supplies. The group used an old school bus, stripped down and repurposed, to travel between locations, occasionally back towards Los Angeles. Trips took hours, sometimes most of a day. Breakdowns, heat, rough roads, every journey was an ordeal. But the isolation reinforced control. The harder it was to leave, the easier it was to convince people they had nowhere else to go. Before the desert, before Barker Ranch, Charles Manson believed he had a future in music. He drifted through the fringes of Hollywood, crossing paths with musicians, producers, and people chasing the same dream. One of the most famous connections was Dennis Wilson of the Beach Boys, arguably one of the greatest vocal and instrumental bands of their generation. For a time, Manson and members of his group lived at the Wilsons' home. Manson saw Dennis as a doorway into the music industry, his ticket to fame. But that door eventually closed. He was repeatedly rejected by the industry, including being passed over for opportunities connected to bands like the Monkees. According to multiple accounts, tensions escalated to the point where Manson threatened harm against Dennis Wilson's family. That threat reportedly ended their relationship violently and not in Manson's favor. Whatever illusion Manson had of belonging in that world collapsed, and rejection turned into resentment. In August of 1969, members of the Manson family committed a series of brutal murders in Los Angeles. The house on Cielo Drive, where Sharon Tate was living at the time, had previously been rented by record producer Terry Melcher. Melcher was someone Manson associated with his failed music ambitions. While Sharon Tate had nothing to do with those rejections, the location itself carried symbolic weight for Manson. In a tragic twist of fate, she happened to be there when the violence came looking for someone else. The LaBianca murders were more symbolic, intended to spread fear and chaos rather than target a specific individual. Manson believed these acts would trigger the collapse he predicted. Instead, they triggered one of the largest manhunts in California history. Ironically, Manson wasn't captured here because of the murders. In October of 1969, law enforcement raided Barker Ranch while investigating vehicle theft and vandalism in Death Valley National Monument. It took multiple attempts to locate everyone. Manson himself was found hiding inside a small cabinet beneath the sink. Several members were arrested, but initially, police did not connect them to the Los Angeles murders. That connection came later, after one member began talking. With Barker Ranch behind us, we retraced our route, back down through Gohler Wash, past Ballarat, across Panamints Valley towards Lone Pine. The same trail, but a very different feeling. Sometimes understanding a place changes how you feel when you leave it. Today, Ballarat and Barker Ranch are quiet again. The desert has reclaimed them. But places like this remind us that history doesn't always live in cities or museums. Sometimes it hides in the most remote corners of the map. Out here, the land hasn't forgotten, but it has moved on. If this story leaves you wanting to understand more, there are countless books and documentaries that explore the Manson family, trying to make sense of how one person's influence combined with isolation and belief led to such tragic consequences. And interestingly, one of the most accessible portrayals comes from an unexpected place. Tarantino's movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, captures the atmosphere of that era remarkably well. The characters, the tension, and the strange orbit Manson and his followers occupied around Los Angeles, while imagining an ending far better than the one history delivered. It doesn't change what happened, but it does remind us that storytelling can sometimes give us a resolution reality never did. Out here, though, in places like Ballarat and Barker Ranch, the story remains unchanged, quiet, isolated, and written into the desert itself.